Well, as anyone who has watched my channel and my videos for any length of time, you know, there's always a little bit of cynicism involved on my part, and with probably a good dose of idealism left. So when I read this recent statement from Admiral Mullen, who is at the top of the ladder of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, coming out with this statement that he pretty much advises against a military move against Iran, then needless to say, I'm going to take it with a grain of salt, because I'm not really sure whether this is meant for public consumption or whether these are actually deeply held views on his behalf. In the latter case, I would probably applaud that, although it would probably come from out of a self-serving interest, you know, just out of a, you know, the whole military structure and so on. On the other hand, if it actually is a deeply held view of his, and he's coming out with this now, not just for public consumption, but as getting something out there, some point of thought on internal opposition arising in the military, which of course, you know, that's not news, and there will be always some viewpoints within the military establishment which go against political policy, so to speak. But it would probably be welcomed at this point by the American people not to engage in another war. The thought of a military coup occurring in this country is a bit far-fetched. I don't believe that that will happen, and I don't think that that would actually be in our best interest. Even if there is much opposition within the top ranks of the military against our civilian leadership now. You know, we would just be exchanging probably one kind of dictatorship for another. On the other hand, you know, our founding fathers could not have imagined 200 years ago just how far the marriage between corporatism and the military establishment has actually gone in terms of favors and furthering corruption. And our civilian leadership at this point actually is you know, civilian. To talk about civilians here is essentially an oxymoron at this point, because nobody is really representing civilians anymore. The people are constantly misinformed by our national press. This has been going on for years and years, decades even. And part of the reason for all of this apathy in this country is basically because people believe there is not much you can do about all this shit anymore. And that is probably precisely what we need to counteract, as tiresome as that becomes. But no change ever comes about without ordinary people pushing those on the top very hard. It happens occasionally, it doesn't always succeed, but that's the only way major change has ever happened in any society, and so we should probably keep that in mind. You know, maybe it'll take some horrible event like the entire middle class in this country completely collapsing before more people will wake up from their slumber, which is a distinct possibility at this point. I think people's lives, for the most part, and not just only here in the States, but basically in all countries, people's lives have to be affected enough by the events around them in order to take a very active stance towards making things better. And since we're on a downslide now, pretty much a downward spiral, that may be the best way in the long run to actually get in touch with people who feel the same and to make things happen. Nothing is going to happen overnight, but the more reasonable people that we can talk with and find to talk with, even if they're oblivious to what is going on around them, the reality crashing in is going to be pretty hard. And we will be looked at in the future as people who could see this happening, and the worst thing we could do is now basically say, well, hey, we told you so. See, didn't we tell you so 10 years ago? Probably not a good strategy. Anyway, keep that in mind and don't dwell in the belief that people are just going to wake up by themselves. It's not going to happen. The effects will be felt all around the world, whether we have a war with Iran or not. And we need to get people together globally and work for change in a positive way, and not just in an election cycle, you know, election rhetoric. As you know, it's just another power structure. Things need to happen in our neighborhoods, at the ground level and on a global level. And believe me, people all around the world can find much more in common than they can with the financial elite, who basically doesn't give a shit what happens to the planet or to anyone else. So let's keep working on it and be diligent and don't give up. Good night.